I personally love hearing that I mean, you might not have loved living it, but that it took you 7 years to write this, because I think that's testament sometimes to the, really good work does take time. It does take patience for it to emerge in the right way. Can you step me through kind of how it sounds like you took pauses at times, and maybe did you consider just walking away from this project altogether? And if so, how did you crack it, basically?
Yeah. I do wish it did take, it did take a slightly shorter amount of time, because, I think a lot of writers compare themselves to other authors and how many books other authors manage to write in X amount of years. And I certainly am guilty of comparing myself to other authors and wondering why other writers can write so fast and I'm so slow. But basically what happened is I wrote Iris and the Tiger and The Gaps kind of in tandem, almost like a little relay race. I was writing them parallel to each other, which I'm not sure was a great idea, but it kind of was how I could cope with writing The Gaps, was to, work a little bit on The Gaps, then go to something for a much younger age group that was full of magic and quirkiness and whimsy, and just rest my soul with that and recharge my batteries and enjoy that experience, and then come back to The Gaps, which was a lot more of a roller coaster and a lot kind of more heavy and intense than writing for a middle grade audience. But I do think with writing, I'm going to give this advice, and I'm probably terrible at following my own advice, but you kind of can't control the process or the beast. You just got to go along for the ride, and it's probably not going to happen the way you expect it. I started The Gaps unexpectedly. I sort of had the idea and I was thinking about it a lot, and then I went on an AsiaLink residency to Beijing for 3 months, and I had a project proposal that I was planning to work on and research, and I had a very, very, very certain plan. I would do 50% research and 50% writing in my time in Beijing on this project. And instead I got to Beijing and I sat down, and the first 30,000 words of The Gaps just fell out of me sort of feverishly. I was sleeping strange hours, watching a lot of Scandinavian crime shows, and it just came out of me, and it really was inconvenient, not what I was supposed to do. And then, again, as you said, I stopped and started a lot after that. So I just think it was what it was, yeah. And it's happened to me again. I feel like working on a YA and a middle grade at exactly the same time now. I'm working on a historical YA and a fantasy middle grade, and I'm pretty sure I'm going to do that thing where I work on them in parallel. And I'm not sure it's terribly efficient, but it's, what can I do?
So writing the book, I'm always interested to know just a little bit more about the process and how you did that. And I know you've studied creative writing as well. So, I mean, how long did it take to write? And can you tell us anything about your writing practice?
Yeah, so Xander was a tough one. I'm someone who thinks about a story for a very long time before I actually put any words on paper or anything. I kind of think that, at least in my head, I have to know maybe 60% or something of the story, even before I start sort of trying to draft it out or anything like that. And I think with Xander, as I said, like all those other elements that I had for it when I was thinking about it and the story, and it kind of came to me, when we were on holidays at the time. We were in the States, and we were literally sitting by a pool in the States, and it was just like this lightning moment where I kind of thought, you know what, I've got it, and I got out my laptop and I just started writing, and sort of the rest of that trip was kind of this blur between sort of going out and doing things and then just wanting to get back and just try and get this story out. And I wrote the first draft of this story in probably, it was about a 2-week period, this burst of creative writing that I did. And I really thought, even in the beginning, that I had gotten it right. I thought in this 2-week period, I got it right. And I even made like a cardinal thing where I kind of sent out an early draft, and I heard back kind of some positive things for it. And so I thought, oh yeah, that's, I'll just kind of tinker with it and that'll be done. But obviously after the way, that wasn't the case apparently. I heard back some not so positive feedback. And so then I kind of had gone away from it, and I came back to it, and I realized that because the whole story is kind of like a puzzle as when you read it, I mean, the 100 remarkable things have to kind of all fall into place, and it has to feel like it's doing it organically. So it's really one big thread with a bunch of subplots that run through it. And so it ended up like every time you changed one thing, it was kind of like a house of cards that kind of, fell down. And so it actually ended up taking me after that another 5 years of working on the book, like just like not all like writing all the time on it, but sort of going away and coming back and so forth. So it ended up taking me another 5 years before the moment came where I kind of thought, I think this is everything that I can give to it. This is everything I can do for it. And so that's how it sort of came about.
I did watch the panel that you did before. I think it was for the Emerging Writers Festival, but I'm not sure.
Oh yeah.
And I thought that was so interesting how you did speak so candidly, and I found it really kind of inspiring about how much you changed. And the way you described it in such a delightful kind of energized way, like I had to read a third. And I was like, I feel like I'd be saying that into a paper bag, but I guess she's got the distance on it. So I guess what I really wanted to ask you was, and maybe you just have a healthier mindset and a good temperament, but when you get feedback like that, even though it's such an honor to be having won the prize and all that, when you get like massive structural change necessitating feedback, for a writer who's maybe dealing with that right now and feeling just a bit like, oh God, have any wisdom that you could impart about how to tackle big scale?
Yeah, I mean, I think when the changes that I made, it made it a better book, and I could see that it was going to be a better book as a result of these. And it was a very clear direction. And I think sometimes you feel like you're really, especially, I'm not a plotter particularly. I try to have a sort of vague structure in my mind, but I mostly just kind of write and see what comes. And I need to find the characters. So I do a lot of drafts, and I do a lot of, trying to find out who these people are before, which never makes it into the finished product. So I'm used to that, I guess. But there were other changes that I suggested that I pushed back on. There's one particular one that I pushed back on, and then the final draft, my editor was like, I think this needs to happen. And I was like, yeah, you're right, it does need to happen. I just needed to get there myself, As far as finding the energy for it, I think I know when it's finished, and when I can't give any more to it. And if I felt that I was in that place, I would have said, oh, thanks, but no thanks. Like, I'll see if I can get it published somewhere else. But if you're going to get it published, get your book published by a traditional publisher, there is going to be some revisions and some changes, and that's part of the process. And it makes it collaborative in a way that writing is often so solitary and lonely. And I suddenly had someone in my corner, and someone who was excited about my book. And I think some editors might be very worried about, for example, commercial considerations, like we can't publish this because it won't sell. But I never heard that from my editor at Hardy Granny One. It was all about making it a better book, making it a clearer, character journey, making the plot stand out more, making sure the pacing was right. Like when you say you fell through the book, that's a lot of that's her, knowing what to cut and knowing what to speed up and knowing what to slow down and knowing which moments to linger over.